There are 3 separate pieces to counting that students need to know in order to be able to count a group of objects properly. So let's pretend that I have a group of objects here that I am required to count as a child. Now, in order to count them accurately, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 3 things have to come together. First of all, I need to know the counting sequence, the order of the numbers. I need to know that the numbers go from 1 till whatever number I get to. Children can often stumble in the beginning with numbers less than 10, and then later on, somewhere in the teens, they sometimes also get confused and they forget the sequence. Another piece that students need to know is they need to be able to do what's called tagging, which is to touch each object once and only once. They need to be able to tag properly, and they also need to synchronize the number word and the tagging action so that the 2 things are synchronized. The number sequence, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in this case, and the action together. And that's called synchrony. Let's take a look at some ways that those errors might come up. So a student who can tag and understand synchrony but doesn't have the number sequence might do something like 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, 10, 11. So that's a student who is tagging properly. They're touching each object once and only once. They're saying the object name or the number at the time when they're touching, but the number sequence is incorrect. Sometimes the numbers are just not set in the correct order. So it could be 1, 2, 3, 5, 4, 6, 10. Another error students might make, once they have the number sequence, they still might not count accurately because they might accidentally double tag. That means to tag an object twice, or they might miss an object altogether. Let's take a look at the first one of those. So if I was counting these objects, especially, if they are leaving them all together like this, they might do something like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So perhaps they lost track that they'd started on that blue one and they counted it again a second time. Another way they might have a tagging error is by missing an object altogether. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this last object, this extra blue one here wasn't touched. One thing that you can do as a teacher, if you're working with young children just at the cusp of counting, is you can throw in also cubes that are attached together and see how they cope with that. Do they count that as one object, or do they tag them both separately as 2 separate objects? So a child who might tag that incorrectly might do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and count that as a single object instead of 6, 7. The third piece of counting that needs to happen is a little trickier to think about when you're first learning about counting, but once you're out there in the classroom watching kids, this is one of the ones that you will see. And I see this all the time with young children who know the counting sequence to 10, but this counting sequence doesn't really have any meaning. All they know is that it ends at 10. And so sometimes you'll see something like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So they tag properly. They touched each object once and only once. They had the number sequence correct from 1 to 10. They didn't make any errors in the order of the numbers. However, because their touch and their number wasn't in synchrony, they ended up counting 10 objects. If kids really have a lot of experience counting to 10, those numbers will run together sometimes, and every set of objects they count will end at 10, regardless of how many objects there are. So that's something to keep an eye out for with, and that is synchrony. So again, the 3 pieces to counting. There's the number sequence, the order of the numbers from 1 to 10. There's the tagging, touching each object once and only once. And finally, it's the synchrony, that those touches and the number word have to be said at the right time as they're touching the object.